Hello friends. Today's video focuses on one of the most significant aspects of the human design system, and yet one that is, for some people, like the hardest to really embrace and really understand, and certainly to embody in their lives. So I want to give you a larger context for understanding this, because one of the reasons that people feel challenged when learning their human design is that they don't have a big enough context for it, and they don't really understand what human design is as a system. So today I'm going to share with you the context that you need to understand human design more generally, and then we're going to zero in on human design authorities, which is how you're designed to make the best decisions for you, and what is it that you need to actually be able to access and then trust your own human design authority. This is juicy content, people. It's very, very life-changing when you get it. So let's go ahead and explore together. Your human design authority is one of the three most important aspects of your chart that you learn first. So you've probably heard this before if you've been in the human design world, even for a little bit, which is that the first thing to learn is your type, your strategy, and your authority. Okay. Now, if those are not familiar to you, you can go to my Start Here playlist and you'll get more in-depth information about that in my Start Here playlist. You also learn how to read your chart and, a variety of different things. So, but that's the place that you're going to want to go for more in-depth exploration of those larger topics. And then today we're going to really zero in on the authorities. But before I do that, I want to say that the strategies and the authorities in human design are all intuitive. Okay, none of them are analytical, they're not rational, they're not logical, they're not strategic. And this is one of the key reasons that people have a difficult time tapping into their authority, because most of us have some blocks against our intuition. Now, we may not be conscious of that, and we may not have kind of purposely put up those blocks. But for the vast majority of us, we have been conditioned into left brain dominance, which is our analytical brain, right? It's our focal gaze. It's our ability to zero in on details and strategize and stuff. It's a very valuable aspect of our brain and our intelligence, but it's only one part. We also have a right brain, which is highly creative and embodied. And then we also have intuition, which in the human design system runs through the entire energetic field. And so most of us were never taught to think about ourselves that way, that in fact our creativity is just as important as our logic, and then our intuition is actually more important than both. We weren't taught that. I know I wasn't taught that. I didn't really start exploring my intuition until I was in my 40s, because I was, trained as a literary critic. And so I was very analytical in what I did, and I got quite good at it, even though I don't have a lot of logic in my human design chart. So you don't have to have it in your chart. You can still program yourself that way. Many, many people do. Most people do. And while it gives us a lot of positive attributes for navigating ordinary reality, it gets in the way of our ability to connect with our intuition and with our human design strategies and authorities. That's context number one, right? Is just to recognize that for the most part, we haven't really spent as much time and attention and energy cultivating our intuition as we have our analytical brain. And I'm sure you know that. But human design is, and this is context number two, human design is a spiritual and energetic system. It's a mystical system. If you think about it for a second, human design was received from spirit, okay? It was channeled. It is a mystical experience, right? Because it comes directly from superconsciousness, came directly from superconsciousness through Rahu Ruhu, who is the founder of human design, right? Who downloaded a whole bunch of this system just in a 7-8 day period. And then he continued to develop it and download more about it during the course of his life. So it's a mystical system. It's a spiritual system. It's an energetic system. It's a gift from spirit. So it's not an analytical system. And when you try to approach human design analytically, okay, you can't really get into what it's all about. You can't. And human design is a spiritual system, right? If you think about it, it draws on 4 ancient spiritual wisdom traditions, right? That are all energetic and they're all spiritual. So why am I emphasizing this? It's because if you, let's say you're at a job where you have to do analysis, right, of some kind, which is most things, right? A lot of things are like that. You're doing that, and then you come back and you read a book on human design. You go, my human design authority, I am here to use my sacral to respond. And you're like, okay, that sounds good. How do I do that? But you're still in this like kind of energetic state where your analytical mind is primarily in charge, right? You're not down in your body. The thing is, though, is because it's a spiritual and energetic system, it doesn't live in the same realm as what you can access with your analytical mind. Because your analytical mind is primarily interested in material reality. It's interested in physical reality. Our spiritual self is what helps us to access the energetic realms and the spiritual realms. Interesting, right? So then you need to be able to contact your own inner being or your divine self or the wise one within, whatever you want to call your higher self, right? Whatever you want to call what I'm increasingly calling the light being that is animating your form, the light being that is animating your physical body. Right? Whatever you want to call that part of you, because it is you, it's not something different. It's just that in our culture, we've kind of been taught that part doesn't exist, or it doesn't matter, or it's not important, or it's not trustworthy. When in fact, it's our largest source of guidance. Because what is intuition? Intuition is how we receive guidance from our inner being, right? We're not receiving it from our logical brain, we're receiving it from another part of who we are. And so the human design authorities all rely on our ability to contact that light being inside, that higher self, right? That divine self, that wise one within. Because that's the part that's going to be helping us to make the decisions. It's the part that's going to be guiding us through the process of unfolding what is right for us. And when you can approach it that way and you realize that you're in a different realm, you're not in the realm where you're going to be working numbers, right? Or you're going to be analyzing spreadsheets, or you're even going to be analyzing like literature. You're really in an open, receptive state where you want to say, okay, inner being, I'm here. I am open to your guidance. For me, this is the most critical shift that we as human beings are making right now, which is to get more in touch with this other aspect of ourselves, which of course is much bigger than the human part. Our spirit aspect is much, much bigger. It has a very different perspective, can give us guidance that's coming in from, things that our human self is not so aware of. And that's why the authorities are really interesting, because they're a mechanism through which we receive guidance from our inner being, right? From a download from spirit. It's not from figuring it out with our heads. And start to notice every time you go, well, I just need to go figure that out, right? Well, what is figuring something out? Figuring out comes from doing math problems. That's what we do. We do our figures, right? So pay attention to that, because anytime you say, I just need to figure that out, you're activating your left brain, okay? And what you want to be able to do is step out of that and say, okay, I'm not going to try to deal with this with my head. I'm actually going to come down from the thinking tower. I'm going to come down into my body, and I'm going to tune into my body wisdom and how my spirit self is speaking to me through my body. Again, very different, right, than the way we generally have been taught to make decisions. I know for many, many years, I made decisions strategically, analytically. And when I came to human design and discovered that I actually was designed to respond and designed to use my sacral authority, which is my so-called gut authority, right? This kind of deep primal, right, part of me, I was like, wait a minute, I've been initiating my whole life. What do you mean? And then I stopped and I was like, okay, and this is a really good exercise that I would encourage you to do, is I said, wait, let me stop for a minute. Let me go back and review my life and see major turning points, times I made major decisions. Okay, I'm not talking about, the time when you decided to go to this restaurant or that restaurant, but when you were like, okay, I made this major life decision. And then tune in for yourself. Were you using your mind? Were you figuring it out? Were you being analytical or strategic? Or were you coming from something inside of you, something that was more somatic or more body sensed? I surprised myself when I did that exercise. For me, I went back through my life and I discovered that a lot of times I started with response. So I'm a generator, I'm a pure generator. And I'm designed to work with the flow of life by responding to what shows up in my outer reality, and I respond with my sacral authority. Okay, so for generators, our strategy and our authority are very, very intertwined. But then I went back and I was looking through my history, right? And I was thinking, gosh, when I decided to go to graduate school, I decided that because I had 3 different professors when I was an undergraduate say to me, have you thought about going to graduate school? You'd be really good. This was at a time when the academic job market was really suppressed and there weren't a lot of jobs, and they were like, you would get a job. You would get a job. And so that really sunk in, right? And I took some time to feel into it. And I didn't know about human design and I didn't know about my sacral, but I did get a yes. Inside, I got just a feeling of yes. And so then I turned, right? I responded to what they said inside my body. I felt what my body was saying. And then I turned around and I initiated applying to graduate school. So this is one of the things that's important really for all types to understand, that even if you're not a manifester, because manifestors are the only type that are designed to initiate first thing as their strategy, is once you enter into something correctly by strategy. So for me, once I responded, I could initiate once I got going. Whereas, before I learned human design, I was just thought of it as I initiated going to graduate school. But that's not how it happened. So think about it for you when you go back through that timeline and you're like, okay, what are some major decisions that I've made? And see, like if you're a generator, were you actually responding to something and then initiating? Or were you just initiating out of ideas, out of your head, out of your strategy, out of your analysis? Because I did do that for many years and I did burn myself out multiple times because my mind can't actually tell me what I have energy for. And it actually can't tell me like what's going to, unfold in a way that's going to do well for me. It has ideas about that. But my inner being, which is what's speaking to me through my sacral, has a much bigger perspective and helps protect me from making decisions where I'm going to burn myself out. So whatever your type is, when you learn your strategy and your authority, it will protect you from making decisions that your mind thinks is a good idea, but actually isn't really for you. So it's well worth developing that skill set. And I think about this for people who are emotionally defined. The emotional solar plexus is colored in on their chart, which if you have that on your chart, it'll say you have emotional authority. I'm not going to go into a deep dive about that because it's complex. I do have a video about it, which I'll put the link for it down below so you can go into that in more in depth. But what I want to say here is I've talked to lots of people. 50% of the population are emotionally defined. I've talked to a lot of people with emotional definition who have a history of making decisions that they later regret because they made them emotionally. And the key thing for people who are emotionally defined, I'll just say, is not to make emotional decisions and to give yourself time. And I would say if you're a generator, use your sacral authority over time until you get clear. If you're not a sacral being, then, to speak this out to a high quality listener over time until you get to clarity. Those are kind of the keynotes for emotional authority. But the main thing to know is that you do not want to, even if you get exhilarated and you're like, I love this, I so want to do it, right? Give yourself time. So that's one thing to understand about emotional authority, and to know that it actually interfaces in a beautiful way with the particular skill sets that I was saying about how to use authority, and also how to get advice from other parts of your human design that can help you make better decisions if you're emotionally defined. So for all generator types, we all have sacral authority. So we'll have the response. Feels different in different bodies, but that's kind of the core of it. So no matter what kind of generator you are, pure generator, emotional generator, manifesting generator, we all have sacral authority, and we can all tune into the inner guidance that comes from our sacral. Then for projectors and manifestors, and I also think for reflectors, this is not kind of traditional human design lore, but this is my experience having worked with a bunch of reflectors at this point, which is that they benefit from having a high quality listener that helps them talk through their decisions, right? Not by taking in other people's advice, but by talking it through and inviting their inner being to come in and share with them, right? Help them kind of sort it out from the inside. Because it's much easier for people like that to get it out of their system, right? They kind of have to process it through expression. Now, I did do a reading for a woman who was a projector, who was in her early 60s, and she had been a medical professional. She was a medical doctor. And when I did a reading for her, I said, so you're designed to be making decisions by talking it through with a high quality listener. And this is what it might look like. And I said, do you have anybody like that in your life? She goes, no, I don't have any people like that. But I've been doing that in my journal for years. I was like, so she's been kind of processing her thoughts and coming to her conclusion about what's right for her in her journal. Now, traditional human design would not acknowledge that as being valid, but I listen to people I do readings for, and when they say, hey, it works for me, I like to pass it on, because sometimes there are other people out there who see that as well. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's true for me. I really get a lot of writing it out. I have sacral authority, but I also write out a lot to get clear about my thoughts. So for our projectors and our manifestors and our reflectors, having a high quality listener is really, really great. Now, I know manifestors technically, according to traditional human design, just get an inner impulse and they can go out there and they can initiate. Well, yeah, to a degree. But again, having known a number of manifestors, I have seen how they can benefit by that high quality listener, particularly if they're more extroverted, right? Which a lot of manifestors are. They're pretty extroverted, right? And so it's good for them to be able to talk things through so that they can actually hear the conclusion that they're coming to. Because those creative impulses that they get that make them want to initiate, they can't have them on demand. Right? They come through when they come through. They are their guidance from spirit. It is their guidance from their inner being, but it's not so much that they can just create it on demand. Whereas you can sit down and choose to have a high quality listener that will help you. And so I really encourage our non-generator types to be exploring that, whatever that is. And I do know I have reflectors I have relationships with. They also find this really, really beneficial. It's just talking this through. So from my point of view, there are really two primary types of authorities, okay? There's the sacral authority, right, which is its own kind, and 70% of the population have this one. And then there are the other ones that really benefit from talking things through. And I would put all of them into that category. And that's going to be more or less important depending on the particular individual. Because let's remember, human design is about you finding out what's true for you as an individual. It's not about you trying to fit into a box that you read that says human design says you should be this way. That is not core to human design. And when people talk about human design, turn around and walk the other way, because that is not core to the philosophy of human design. The core philosophy of human design is you have the authority inside of you to know what's right for you. So I always say, including anything that I say, run it through your own system. Notice if you get resistance that might not be helpful. But just run it through your own system and see what it feels like in your body. Because sometimes you may learn things from human design that they don't relate to you. Like the woman who was writing in her journal, like if I said, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to go talk to a person. She already figured out what worked for her. Who would I be to say, no, stop doing what you're doing that's working? It's like, it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So just as an example. So high quality listener, sacral authority. I believe that everyone will benefit from learning how both of those types of authorities work. Because the truth is that we're in a world where 70% of people have sacral authority. So it's really good for those who are not generators to learn how that works. And the other 30% of people are working with other authorities. And it's really important for us who are generators to know how to work with them, and then for them to know how to work with each other as well. I also think the ability to be a high quality listener is just a skill set that pretty much all of us should be developing, regardless of our type. Because one of the biggest causes of suffering for people in the world is not feeling heard and not feeling seen. So when we can actually be a high quality listener, where we're encouraging that person to just speak their truth, to go deeper, without giving them advice, without telling them what to do, but helping to draw them out so that they can go deeper, that is an incredible skill that we need for the new earth that's now unfolding. Becoming a high quality listener is a skill worth developing, but it is a skill. And your sacral authority is also a skill. Both of these are skills. I don't think they're particularly easy for anyone, really. And so I love to teach about this, and I'm going to be doing an Embody Your Human Design Authority challenge towards the end of September. So just put that in your calendar, that it's coming up. And so if this is interest to you, then you can find out about that. And I hope that you'll join us for that, because I have really found that people benefit when I've done sacral skills labs in the past, or in our Sovereign Sisterhood, where we spend time really working with authorities. This really helps people accelerate not just their ability to make decisions, but also their ability to access their human design on a deeper level. So just to summarize, okay, human design is a mystical, spiritual, energetic system. It does not live in the same realm as material reality. And in order to access it, you need to activate and cultivate your intuitive ability, which is your connection with your inner being. And your inner being, if you're a generator, is going to speak to you in or okay? I do have other videos about how the sacral kind of communicates, but that's the basic, right? And then if you are not a generator type, then a high quality listener, being able to talk through things is really, really beneficial. And in both cases, if you're emotionally defined, we're trying to get you into a state where you're really connected with that inner being, and you're not making emotional decisions, because that can be really, really problematic. And I hope you'll join us for our challenge that's coming up in September. And I would love, love, love to help you get hooked up to the very best way of you making choices for yourself. All right, my friends, many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.